Under my leadership, Labour will be back in business.
What would your message to Keir Starmer be today?
I would say Keir Starmer if you don't want me to be polite.
Remember when Keir Starmer promised a fresh start for Labour? Fast forward to today, and we're witnessing a political nosedive that's left even his supporters scratching their heads. From rising star to embattled leader.
That's why we're ready to listen, ready to partner, ready to serve.
We will build
Keir Starmer, a pledge is not an indication. A pledge is a word, is your word. It's a pledge.
Starmer's journey has been anything but smooth. But what exactly went wrong? And more importantly, can he survive this latest blow to his leadership? In April 2020, Keir Starmer stepped into the spotlight.
Labour is the party that wants to bring our nations together.
As Labour's new leader, promising to guide the party out of its political wilderness. With his background as the former Director of Public Prosecutions, Starmer seemed to embody the competence and integrity that many Labour supporters craved. But would this polished newcomer truly be the saviour the party had been waiting for?
In fact, he also seems to have brought our whole team of fellow head vacuums with him into government.
Starmer's election came on the heels of Jeremy Corbyn's tumultuous tenure, and he wasted no time in setting a different tone.
We must stop people crossing in boats across the Channel, and we have to get to grips with the volume of regular migration we have in this country.
We need to bring the party together and ensure we are a party that can win again, he declared, positioning himself as a unifying force. This message resonated with Labour members who were tired of internal squabbles and electoral defeats. Initially, Starmer's approach seemed to pay dividends. Polls showed Labour surging ahead of the Conservatives, with one survey giving them a 5% lead. The public appeared to be warming to Starmer's measured demeanour and forensic questioning style in Parliament. His early policy positions struck a balance between appealing to traditional Labour values and reaching out to centrist voters. Yet beneath the surface of this apparent unity, tensions were simmering.
If today was the real vote, I would vote against the government's plans. On this basis, I reassured farmers in my constituency that we would not. Now, I simply am not prepared to break my word.
Some party members viewed Starmer's leadership with skepticism, worried that he might be drifting too far from Labour's core principles. The ghost of factional disputes that had plagued the party under previous leaders still lingered, threatening to undermine Starmer's promise of a fresh start. Despite these undercurrents, Starmer's initial months as leader were marked by a sense of momentum. He successfully distanced the party from the controversies of the Corbyn era while presenting a more electable face to the public. His background in law gave him credibility when challenging the government on issues of competence and accountability.
Oh, sorry, that useless son of a toolmaker, Keir Starmer.
However, as Starmer reflected later, losing hurts, and it should hurt in politics, because this isn't about me, it is about whether the Labour Party can come back into government and serve working people. This statement hinted at the challenges that lay ahead. The real test would be whether Starmer could translate his early popularity into lasting electoral success and genuine party unity. The initial enthusiasm surrounding Starmer's leadership was giving way to a growing sense of unease.
The whole Labour idea was to lie to get into office and then kick the pensioners, trash the wealth creators, and then destroy the agriculture sector, calling it growth.
His promise to be a party for the many rang hollow as membership numbers began to plummet. What had caused such a dramatic shift in Labour's fortunes? Keir Starmer's campaign for Labour leadership had been built on a foundation of unity and electability.
This is a different Labour Party. I won't bore you with all the details, but over the last 3 years since I've been leader, I've had an intense focus on changing our party. And we've changed that party from top to bottom.
He'd promised to bring the party together, to restore its credibility, and to offer a viable alternative to the Conservative government. But as the country grappled with unprecedented challenges, cracks began to appear in Starmer's carefully crafted image. One of the most glaring contradictions emerged in Starmer's approach to Brexit. Despite his earlier pledges to honour the referendum result and move forward, he found himself caught in a political quagmire. His shifting stance on the issue left many Labour supporters feeling betrayed and confused. Was this the clear leadership they had been promised?
Mr. Speaker, now we learn he's about to give away our hard-won Brexit freedoms. The truth is, they are punching the British people in the face.
But Brexit wasn't the only area where Starmer's actions seemed at odds with his words. His handling of workers' rights and public services, issues close to the heart of Labour's traditional base, drew criticism from trade unions and party members alike. The very people Starmer had vowed to champion now felt sidelined and ignored. As dissatisfaction grew, Labour's membership numbers told a stark story. From a high of 570,000 in 2020, party membership had plummeted to around 400,000 by 2023. This exodus spoke volumes about the growing disillusionment within Labour's ranks. One frustrated party member summed up the mood. "We thought Starmer would unite us, but instead, he's alienated core supporters. It feels like he's more interested in appeasing centrists than fighting for Labour values."
Starmer is destroying the country.
I just think the Labour Party in London do not understand.
He's not there to protect us. It's deliberate. It's as simple as that.
Political commentators began to question Starmer's credibility. His failure to deliver on key promises had created a perception that he was out of touch with both the party's grassroots and its traditional voter base. The polished image that had initially won over many was now seen as a facade, hiding a lack of conviction and clear vision. As trust in Starmer's leadership eroded, a crucial question loomed. Could he regain the confidence of his party and the public, or had his compromises and U-turns inflicted irreparable damage to his political standing? As the votes were tallied, a chill ran through Labour headquarters. The unthinkable was happening in a place they least expected it. How could a party that once dominated this area find itself not just losing, but coming in third? The by-election in question took place in a constituency that Labour had considered its stronghold for generations.
And all Labour seem to be able to do is snatch money any which way they can and not keep their word. I'm sorry, I've had enough of it.
It was supposed to be a routine victory, a chance for Keir Starmer to showcase his leadership and prove that Labour was on the path to recovery. Instead, it became a political earthquake that exposed the deep fault lines within the party. The campaign was dominated by local issues, but none more contentious than the ultra-low emission zone, ULEZ expansion. Starmer found himself caught between environmental concerns and the economic worries of working-class voters. His attempts to straddle this divide left many feeling that he lacked conviction on both fronts. On the doorsteps, Labour canvassers faced an uphill battle. Traditional supporters expressed their discontent, feeling that the party no longer represented their interests. Starmer's leadership, once seen as a breath of fresh air, now seemed distant and out of touch. The disconnect between the National Party and its grassroots was painfully evident. As the results came in, the scale of the defeat became clear. Labour hadn't just lost, they had been pushed into third place. The political landscape had shifted dramatically, with parties like Reform UK gaining traction at Labour's expense. This wasn't just a local setback, it was a stark warning about the fragmentation of British politics. The aftermath was brutal. Political analysts pointed out that this defeat indicated a lack of honeymoon period for Starmer's leadership. Voters were already willing to punish Labour for perceived failures, a troubling sign for a party hoping to rebuild its credibility. The implications for Starmer's position were immediate and severe. This wasn't an isolated incident. Labour had suffered a net loss of 11 councillors in recent by-elections, while the Conservatives had gained 4 seats. The trend was clear, and it pointed to a leadership in crisis. As Labour councillor Steve Edwards penned a scathing rebuke, the cracks in Starmer's leadership became chasms. His words weren't just a critique, they were a desperate warning from within the party's own ranks. There'll be quite a few Labour councillors and maybe some MPs who will be stacking shelves in Tesco or Asda, Edwards cautioned, painting a bleak picture of Labour's future if things didn't change. Edwards' statement was more than just political posturing. It was a cry for help from a party in crisis. The recent by-election loss, where Labour came third in a seat they once considered safe, had exposed the rot at the core of Starmer's leadership. This wasn't just a local setback, it was a symptom of a much larger problem. The fallout from Edwards' critique spread like wildfire through Labour's ranks. Party members, already disillusioned with Starmer's shifting stances and broken promises, found their frustrations given voice. The idea that Labour politicians might soon be stacking shelves resonated with those who felt the party had lost touch with its working-class roots. But Edwards wasn't alone in his criticism. Other Labour figures began to speak out, echoing concerns about Starmer's leadership style and decisions. The party that had once rallied behind Starmer's promise of unity now found itself more divided than ever. Whispers of potential leadership challenges began to circulate, with some members calling for a return to more traditional Labour values. The implications for Labour's electoral prospects were dire. With a dozen by-election losses in less than a month, the party's ability to win back voters was in serious doubt. Political analysts pointed to a shift in voter sentiment, suggesting that Starmer's attempts to appeal to centrists had alienated Labour's core support base. As the dust settled, it became clear that Labour, under Starmer's leadership, was a party in crisis. The promise of a fresh start had given way to a bitter reality of internal strife and electoral failure. The question now was whether Starmer could weather this storm and rebuild trust, or if Labour was headed for yet another leadership upheaval.